Okay, are we ready for the intangible? Like, this is such a hard house on its own. The 12th house. This is such a hard, intangible, can't grasp house that, I mean, it already has its issues of trying to get through this house or having this house or trying to figure out this house, right? But then we have Pluto that we're born with in this house. So this part of the video is Pluto, you being born with Pluto in the 12th house, which is not an easy placement, but I'm going to tell you they're all hard placements. They're all hard placements. I mean, there's not an easy one in there. Yeah, there's not an easy one in there. So, you guys know this is Pluto in your natal. This is when you go look up your natal chart, and you can look it up for free. Pluto is sitting in your 12th house. You were born, the universe took a picture. That's where Pluto was, in your 12th house. And said, good luck with that. Sorry. So, this placement, this having Pluto in this 12th house, the house that nobody really completely understands, and that's for a reason, but we'll get into that. Having this placement, you were probably born. It reminds me of like the empath that can become the dark empath that then becomes the light empath. That's kind of what this is, kind of, right? Um, because I'm going to try to describe the indescribable. That's what I'm going to try to do. I'm going to try to help you feel the vastness of this area of you, of us, of the connection. Okay? So having this gives you probably still are, such empathy, such compassion for the world, for everyone around you, for humanity, for you personally. You can, when you were young and in your other lives, you could probably feel so much, feel everyone. It's that's why it's the Piscean house too. Like, think of the 12th house as the Piscean house, right? It's very like intuitive. It's very like empathic because you can feel everyone, everything, every animal, every plant, everything. You can feel it. And it can become, when you're a child, or had become even in other lives, overwhelming. It was too much. And it can become paralyzing. That's why Pisceans, like, we may fault them for not being able to make a choice about something, or they kind of look at you and they're like thinking really hard about it, or they're feeling really hard about it the way that they do it. Um, Pisces is uh, intercepted in my chart, so well, I'll have to talk about. I'm going to do a video on that too. So I have to like really connect to try to get to Pisces in my chart. It's in me. It's just a little bit harder to connect to it if I like I can connect to it automatically not thinking about it, but if I think about it, it's a little bit harder. I don't know if that makes any sense. So this house is your connection. This part of your life, this part of you is the connection between you, the body, you, the soul, and you, the higher self, and you, the other dimensions, and you, the other beings, and you, source, and you, God. That's the connection there. It's vast, it's huge, it's beyond these realms, it's beyond all realms. It's really vast, right? But when you were born and growing up, you probably felt really overwhelmed because You can tell when somebody's angry and they're not showing it. You can tell when somebody's sad and they're not showing it. You can tell, you can feel it, right? And I mean, imagine like your sister or brother comes in and you can feel them, and then all of a sudden your mother comes in, you can feel that too, and then you can feel the table, and you can feel the plants, and you can feel outside, and it just becomes overwhelming, right? It becomes really overwhelming as a child and in other lives. You were so connected. Um, this house is not about something that you can grasp. It's not something that you're meant to grasp. You're not meant to grasp. Let me see if I can explain it this way. You're not meant to grasp your higher self and bring it down. You have a connection there already. You are the higher self bringing it down. There's no reason to bring the higher self down. You just have to connect, right? So there's no grasping whatever this is. There's no grasping the universe and bringing it here. There's no grasping source and bringing it here. You're already here and there and here and there. Does that make sense? So, this house, when you have Pluto in it, is about you connecting to and realizing and becoming aware of your part in this whole thing. That makes sense? And what you do when you're in this house, what Pluto is doing is trying to help you stand in your power and understand your transcendence, your ascension, your awakening. But what does Pluto do? He puts fear there. He puts trauma there. He didn't put trauma there. He shows you your trauma. Shows you your trauma there. Shows you your fear. Shows you all that so that you understand that you are bigger, that you are more. Does that make sense? Yeah. And he's helping you understand how to connect to that. Because you will, throughout your life, learn how to connect through that, through faith, through your practices, right? Your belief system, your compassion, your empathy, your forgiveness. This is all things Pluto is trying to help you understand. But he will bring that up. He will bring up the fear and belief system. He will bring up the fear in your compassion. He will bring up the fear in your empathy. He will bring up the fear and forgiveness. This is the house where your soul, your ego, your soul transforms, understands better, and meets your higher self. So your body and your soul, the ego, meets your higher self. You transcend. You learn in this house, I do this thing, and that's how I connect, right? This is where you understand to grow the soul and the spiritual aspect of you in life, in this life, right? This is where the body and the soul and the spirit meet. Now, having Pluto here the whole time, like when you're born and then as you're coming aware of yourself, you probably have felt very lost. I don't understand. Well, I don't understand people. I don't understand the way the world works. I don't understand. I don't understand. Right? You feel lost. I don't understand these people. Am I really? I mean, should I even be here? Why am I here? I don't understand. Right? You could have had that. Like I feel very lost. I don't. Some of you may even be like, I don't know what this body is. Like I don't understand. Like, why do we have a body? I don't understand, right? I don't know who I am. I don't know why I'm here. I don't understand. I don't feel like I belong here. I feel different than all of this. I don't understand, right? I don't know what I'm doing here. What am I doing here? Why am I here? Like, being born with this placement with Pluto here, you could feel that way. You could have felt that way. And hopefully you've worked through some of this stuff by understanding the connection of spirituality and your body and some spiritual practices. And you're like, why would anybody want to, like, I don't understand. There's so much pain. There's so much lies. There's so much, you just have so much compassion for people. And you don't understand why people have to be the way that they have to be. And so at some point, it may have become overwhelming and too much, and you can't do it, and so you turned it off. You escaped. You may have escaped, right? Like, you can feel the pain of Mother Earth. You can feel the birthing pains of Mother Earth. You can feel the stars. You can feel the planets. You can feel you feel people, but like you can feel the animals. You can feel the things. You can feel the plants. You can feel them. You understand, like you have great empathy and compassion for them because you can feel what they're about, what they're going through, right? And because of all of this, you can feel all the suffering that people go through too. Like that becomes overwhelming, especially as a child and then in your other lives. You could feel a lot, right? And it can become overwhelming. You can feel society as a whole, like as a group. You can feel their birthing and their what they're becoming aware of. Like you can feel all of that, right? And because of the pain or because of the suffering, you can get really focused on that, right? But you can see the good in all of it too. Where people can't see the good, you can see the good in all of it, right? And with this, when you have this placement, because you can feel so much and you empathize and you have compassion, you can lose yourself with self sacrificing. You can lose yourself and you'll sacrifice even when nobody else sees it. You will sacrifice yourself. You have to learn with this placement to have good boundaries. This is what Pluto is teaching you in this house. Not just the connection to your whole being, but the balance between self-preservation, I matter, I am just as important in this world, and self-sacrificing, they matter. They're important in this world. They're important in this life. I'm important in this life. You're having to learn to do that as a placement here throughout your life. Okay? You have to learn good boundaries. But before that happened, you probably turned everything off. You probably went through escapism where you went to the drugs or went to sex, to like lots of different things, whatever you used to escape. Went to drugs, went to alcohol, went to sex, went to like you had to do that because you didn't know how to like turn this off, but you needed it to get to turn off. You just couldn't feel it anymore. It was too overwhelming. This house is teaching you Pluto, not the house, but Pluto is teaching you your connection to it all and compassion in balance, and unconditional love. This is where you become the ultimate compassion and you become unconditional love. Again, this has been going on for lifetimes. This has been, you probably used escapism for lifetimes where you were a alcoholic who maybe passed as an alcoholic or a drug addict or a sex whatever. Like you've probably done this in other life because it's in your birth chart and you're trying to work through this in lifetimes, right? But this is not about doing anything. This is not like I can grasp it, this is what I do. This is about becoming more, becoming what you want to become because you're going to next time, maybe in the next chart of your birth, when you're birthed again, come to the first house, right? So, as a child, you witnessed a lot of suffering. You saw a lot of things, a lot of people suffering, a lot of suffering, too much suffering. And you didn't just see it, you felt it. It was like it was happening to you sometimes. And so much that you couldn't handle it. And again, to protect yourself, you shut it all down, right? You shut down your abilities, you shut down your gifts, you shut down your talents, you shut down the spiritual part of you. You shut it down. You became like, I'm not going to do that, right? I don't want to feel that. I don't want to do that. In other lives, you may have been called, and that's the thing too, in your childhood. You may have been called too dramatic. You're too much. You're too dramatic. It's because you're feeling everything. And sometimes it feels like it's happening to you, right? And so you just cut off the emotion. You cut it off. You escaped. So you might have become numb, stopped feeling, and you might have become very hard. Hard on life, hard on yourself, hard on those people around you. Very closed hearted. Fuck that. You're like, fuck that. I don't care. I'm not doing that. I don't care about your shit. I don't care who you are. I don't care. If you didn't do this, then what you did was you probably isolated because you couldn't shut it off because we really can't shut it all off, right? We're always connected. But you isolated yourself. That's the only way that you knew how to deal with it is to just be in your own freaking energy because it's just too much, right? And you alienated yourself and you isolated yourself just to get through life. Just to get through. People don't understand that you can always feel. Again, it reminds me of the empath like journey, right? The pain was too overwhelming, so you did disassociate. You disassociated. Or if you haven't healed this Pluto, if you haven't worked on this Pluto, you still could be isolating yourself. You could be alienating yourself. And you could have some really bad boundaries. And this is what you need to be working through. Okay? Or you can do the opposite and you can over attach to something or over attach to someone. And it's like, okay, I'll attach to them or this and I'll work out that. Instead of working you out, you'll work out their emotions and their suffering and their trauma and theirs. Does that make sense? So instead of doing you, you're going to do them, but it's like doing you because you're connected. I hope that makes sense, right? And you may have come to a place where you're disillusioned. just don't see it anymore. Just can't see the purpose, right? Where you have a loss of faith because of all the lies and the manipulation and the way people don't really say what they need to say or mean what they need to mean or say what they mean or do what they say or all of that. And you just, it's almost like you can it's like me being a medium. Like I can, what people are saying to me aren't always what people are saying to me. There's always like, I don't know, like if you know me personally, I've said this, people used to ask me, what's it like being a medium, right? It's like, you may be saying something to me, but your soul is saying something else to me, and then your higher self is saying something else to me, and then your loved ones is saying something else to me. So I'm having like five different conversations with you, but you think I'm just having it with you. What you're saying. Does that make sense? That's what this feels like when I went into the 12th house with Pluto in there, right? It feels like that. It feels like what people are saying are not is not what people are saying. That's not what they're meaning. That's they can't. Why can't they just say what they mean? Why is this all this other stuff, right? Because they're lying either to themselves or to me on purpose. Uh, and it just becomes overwhelming. It can become overwhelming. It did to you, right? But Pluto, because he brings it all out, he's bringing out that trauma. You, what you're going to learn, or what you've been trying to figure out, or what you're understanding more of, is your belief system, your faith, your connection to it all. And like I said, like the more that I know, the more I know I don't know much, right? The more I know, the more I come to understand, the more I understand that I don't know much. That's so vast. There's just so many layers. So many layers. So many layers. Right? And what Pluto's trying to help you understand is to stand in you and be strong and have faith that you don't need to know it all. That you don't have to have the intricate knowledge of how the connection is between the body, the soul, the higher self, the other dimensions. You don't have to know every little thing. And so, what you have to do in this house is have faith that it's all been working out and that you're going to work out. I lost my train of thought, sorry, because I'm hearing stuff. And in order to do that, you have to forgive yourself. So, the way to work through this Pluto is you have to surrender. Eventually, you're going to come to that where you're going to surrender to the knowledge and the faith that you'll have that it is beyond you in the body, but it's not beyond you, the whole you. Does that make sense? And you have to, that comes from having faith. That comes from standing strong in who you are. But how do we do that, right? So how do we work through this Pluto? You you either innately know because you were born with this and you probably did this in other lifetimes. You have practices that you know. Like I can see where some of you were born knowing how to do energy healing, knowing how to be a medium, knowing how to do telekinesis, knowing how to move objects. No, like I can see you people here, you Pluto in the 12th house, knowing that stuff from other lives. And then maybe you started looking into it in this life and you're like, "Oh, how come I know that? I already know how to do that. Like I already know about astrology. I already know about da da da." Like I can see that for you, right? And in this house, what you have to do to get to that place where you eventually surrender eventually come to understanding in your own faith and your own belief system and understanding your particular space in this world, in this life, and how important that is, yet how important others are as well, and you in the grand scheme of things, you have to incorporate those spiritual practices in your daily life. So, for some of you, if you like, wait a minute, how do I know tarot? Like, you automatically know tarot, right? Or you've learned tarot, or you've learned astrology, or you've learned meditation, or when you meditated the first time, you completely went in and you're like, how the hell did I do that? It's because you know you've done this before. But those spiritual practices, it is important for you to incorporate those into your daily life because when you do that, you will align with your other selves and connect to this world in a balanced way. When you do those practices, you will learn how to balance yourself in those in the way that you move through this earth. I hope I'm saying this right. You'll learn how to balance your energy. You'll learn how to connect. I'm going to give you an example and I hope that this helps. When I see people say, "Oh, you need protection," like other tarot readers and card whatever, other people, when there's like, oh, you need this ritual and then you can protect yourself and you have to put this on to protect yourself and you have to do, and my understanding, and they're not wrong, I know they're not wrong, that's their belief system, but I'm like, this is a 12th house thing. Like, if you're in the 12th house, you'll get this. You don't need protection from anything. You don't need to do anything to You don't need to do a ritual to be able to protect yourself. You just are that. Does that make sense? Like, you have that understanding, you've just kind of forgotten that understanding. But when you put in spiritual practices, it doesn't make it wrong to do it. It's your belief system, but this will help. And so you can get lost in the fact that, oh, well, maybe I should be doing a ritual. Maybe I need some protection, or maybe I got to get that other person. Somebody put something on me. Somebody put a curse on me. I didn't. You're bigger than that. They can put whatever they want on you. You're just going to bounce it off. That's what you'll come to understand about yourself in this world as you work through this Pluto in this 12th house. But that takes you doing your spiritual practices. That's different for everybody. Like, for me, it's working out, meditation. But for others, it could be, I need to put a candle. It makes me feel better. Da, da, da. It's not a right or a wrong. It's just not, it's a different belief. And you need to find your belief in, you have it in there because you had it in other lives. So you have your belief system in there. Maybe it is tarot for you. Maybe tarot makes you feel good. Not tarot for everybody else, but just doing tarot for yourself. Maybe it makes you feel less anxious to know. Maybe it makes you feel better to be in that energy. Maybe you begin to like connect when you start doing tarot. Maybe you connect when you do astrology. Maybe you connect when you meditate. Maybe you connect when you eat better. Maybe you connect when you do a ritual. Like, whatever this is, you have to begin to do that in your daily life. You have to begin to afford yourself that. You have to begin to balance yourself. Yeah, to balance yourself so that you can be aligned and you can be clear in who you are and what you are and why you're here, right? Now, as you're doing the spiritual practices, like if your spiritual practice is to meditate or tarot or whatever, what you need to work on in the beginning is forgiveness of yourself. You need to forgive yourself. You have to forgive yourself for shutting it off, for doing it wrong, for not showing up, for not being enough, for, maybe thinking that you were too dramatic. Whatever this is, you have to forgive yourself. And then you have to forgive the world. You have to forgive those around you. You have to have compassion, which you do, but you have to connect to that compassion again, and it has to be in balance. You have to find the meaning in your existence. That's not an easy thing. You have to find the meaning in who you are in accordance with this world, in connection to this universe, with a connection to source and your higher self, right? But the first step is to forgive yourself, and then to forgive them, and then to come to your faith. Yeah. And what will happen if you can do it in this lifetime is there will be born a magician. There are so many abilities and talents and gifts that you have. Like some of you is telekinesis, some of you is moving objects, some of you it's a lot of different things. But you'll become the magician. You'll become the guru. And it may not be in this life because not everybody finishes up their Pluto in this life, right? But it could be. And it's your choice whether you want to be that authority figure in the spirituality. Why? Because you lived a lifetime, this lifetime, with the connection and balancing self preservation and self sacrifice and knowing the tools and the talents and the abilities. So you have a lifetime of doing this. You've already been through some of the bad stuff. So, of course, you're going to be the authority in this life if you want to, right? That's what you have to look forward to. But you have to go deep and you have to look at the hurt of why you didn't show up and why you weren't enough and why. And then you have to forgive that. And then you have to forgive them for not being enough and not showing up and not doing the right thing and saying one thing and meaning another. You have to forgive them. And you can do this by implementing the daily practices of your spirituality. And then you'll become the magician. All right. I hope this helps. I'm going to do the next part, which is the transit. And you're welcome to stay for that part too. I mean, it's got good information. It will have good information in there. All right, let's talk about the transit. So, I told you about the natal, which is where your Pluto was when you were born, where Pluto was when you were born. Now we're going to talk about those people. It's probably Capricorn rising or Aquarius rising, or ascending, whichever one you call it. And that is where Pluto is now. Okay, so there's a Pluto when you were born, where that Pluto was when you were born. That's your life theme. That's the wounds and the karma and the trauma over your life that you're trying to get through, that you're trying to heal from, that you're trying to become more of whatever that area is. Okay. And that's the natal. This is the transit. This is where Pluto's coming into that area of your life. So for those of you that are watching this video, it's coming into your 12th house. So either you're Capricorn rising where it's been in your 12th house, it like moved into there probably a year or so ago, and then Aquarius where it's just now moving in, if you're an Aquarius rising or Aquarius ascending. So if you look, Pluto's where the 6 is. See where the house 6 is, and then Pluto's right there with the sun. And that's a big transit that everybody's talking about because the sun illuminates, right? The sun illuminates everything, and what Pluto does is intensifies that area of your life. So, for those of you that have the 12th house transiting, this is kind of a hard. They're all hard. They're all hard. It's really difficult me making this series because I'm having to like, even though I've already channeled all of it, I took that week and a half and channeled it. Um, I'm having to go back into that, and there's a lot of emotion, a lot of trauma, a lot of fear, a lot of that, right? So I talked a little bit about how in the introduction, in the Pluto introduction, and the Aquarius introduction, about how Pluto kind of works and how Aquarius kind of works. So those of you that have Pluto transiting your 12th house, so what you do is you look at your chart, and if Aquarius is the area, you look at the Aquarius area of your chart, and Pluto should be there, right? You won't see it on your chart, but that's kind of where Pluto's at. Okay, so you this is a this is a personal this is a personal one to me because this is where Pluto's transiting for me. It was transiting it started transiting in Capricorn um for me, and then it will be transiting all the way, I think, up till like 2035 or 38, 35, probably 34, maybe not even, yeah, maybe 38, somewhere through there. It'll be transiting where then it'll move into my first house because I'm an Aquarius rising, right? I'm just kind of trying to give you a picture of this. Um, because I know a lot of you don't know a lot about astrology. I know you want to know a lot about astrology, but astrology is so huge that I'm trying to like break it down, as I figured this is the way to like help you understand, help me understand, help you understand a little bit more about astrology. So I'm kind of trying to take it step by step as it becomes personal to us, right? So Pluto is in our 12th house, some of us, and for some, it's going to be in your first house, but they're connected. Everything's connected, right? So when Pluto started transiting your house, your world may have crumbled, and some things on the outside may have like fallen because that was Capricorn too, and that's kind of the 12th house. And what you've come to now, you're probably feeling lost. You're probably feeling like where you were directed and you kind of knew and you were living life and you understood and you like had some pretty deep understanding that you thought of the world and the universe and God, source, whatever, all of that, how it sort of connected to one another and how we were spiritual beings and in body and all of that, right? You probably thought you had a sound foundation about all of that, right? And then Pluto comes into this 12th house and shit just blows up. You probably had some structures taken down. Your world doesn't look at all like it looked before, right? And you've come to, and for some of you, this is going to happen. For some of you, this has already happened. And you're going to, and all of a sudden you feel, see if I can help. You feel like what I thought I knew and the way I thought I knew it worked and the way I thought I had my life is not what I'm seeing or believing, right? And so I hope I'm explaining that. Like, I want you to get to the deep part of, because when Pluto comes in this house, this is not about um, so much what's going to be taken away or the fears that are. This is more about because it's an intangible house. It's not a house that you can like grasp, right? It doesn't mean, and a lot of people do say it's like the undoing house. I mean, I don't believe. I mean, yeah, they got that from somewhere, but I don't. I think we're bigger than that. I think we know more now. So your belief systems may have been crushed. It's not, yeah, it's your belief systems, but it's like what you thought you knew, you don't know, or you're coming to a different conclusion and you're trying to understand. And so when all of this is happening, or all this does happen, or all this has happened, because again, for some of you it has happened, it just happened, it happened a while back, and for some of you it hasn't happened yet, right? But what you find yourself doing, I'm trying to explain this right. What you find yourself doing is feeling lost. Like all of a sudden you're like, I thought I knew the meaning of my life and this world and the way things worked and how people were and how society was and how the universe worked and how God works and how source works and how my identity is and how like you thought you knew, and then you just find yourself like all these other questions on top of the questions that you thought that you'd answered is not there. So it's almost like you you were standing in like your big self. That's not the right way to say it. You were standing in like your confirmation of your way through this world. Like you probably had plans of how you're going to do things and how you want things and and it just didn't happen. It didn't happen. Your world fell apart. So right now you're finding yourself in this space of like it's just so much bigger and it's so much more. And I've said this over the last like couple of years when because people that know me will say you're really really smart, you're very intelligent, and I'll say, because this is the conclusion I've come to. The more I know, the smarter I become. I guess you could say it that way. The smarter I become, the more I know, the more I delve into myself and the world and all of the modalities. The more I know I don't know. The more I know I don't know much, if that makes any sense. Like the more that you know, the more you realize that you don't know much, that there's so much more. Does that make sense? And you feel little, you feel small. But this is what the 12th house and Pluto in the 12th house is trying to help you understand. Remember, Pluto wants to help you understand your power, help you heal your trauma, right? And so in this house, you understand that you don't know much about what you thought you knew a lot of because it's so much more vast. And that's the feeling that you get when when Pluto begins to go through this house, because you can get overwhelmed and feel so small, but you can't forget your connection, because that's what you're trying to do, is realize in you your connection to everything and everyone and the vastness. Like you're trying to take your body and connect it to your higher self, which is connected to the universe, which is connected to other beings, which is connected to other dimensions, which is connected to past the universe, which is connected to source, right? And you feel really small. You may, not everybody has different feelings, but you may feel really small, and you just have to understand your connection, right? Here's the other thing. As your brain is thinking that, as you're trying to come to terms with that, because you're feeling lost, you feel like, what am I doing here? Why am I here? Why are we all here? What is going on? What I thought I had a purpose to and knew from, I don't see it anymore. I don't have it anymore. It's beyond my grasp. That's the 12th house. When you're trying to understand all of this, while you're trying to understand all this, you're in your 12th house is now activated, so you're open. So you're feeling everyone. You're feeling everything. You're feeling, I mean, everything. Animals, plants, people, things. Like you have this compassion and this empathy that you may not have had before, or you may thought you didn't have it before. You just weren't connected to it, and now it's activated and you're connected to it, right? Now, some of you may talk to yourself through dreams, right? So some of you may have started getting dreams and they're prophetic, or they're predictions, or you're really in tune with how you're filtering that down through your dreams about what's happening to you in your daily life. So your dream could be like, oh, this is me feeling trapped or feeling whatever, and I just had a dream about it. And so like you may be delving into that too. And what's going to come out of this? I hope I'm saying this right. What can come out of this should you choose to take up your Pluto and heal it is that a guru, a sage, the magician comes out of this. Like, let's talk about the magician. The manifestations that you thought you were able to do, you didn't just think it, you were actually doing it, right? All of that came to a halt or came to a stop, or it wasn't working the way that you worked before because your belief system started changing because this house was activated. And so what you have to do is go back to square one. For those of you that are awakened, for those of you that had an understanding of the spirit part of you and the body part of you and connecting that to the universe and then putting some tools in place for it, uh, that's what you need to do. You need to, because you're going to want to escape. You're going to want, and for some of you, escape is a lot of things: drugs, alcohol, um, even like, oh, I've got to stay in therapy. Like that could be an escapism. Like you're just escaping and using meditation, uh, different things just to escape. Those some of those things will work in what you need to do, but you're using it as an escape, right? I hope I'm saying this right. And you're going to have to go back to the practices that you began with, right? The practices that you learned. So like and you have to implement them. So like some of you working out, some of you eating correctly, some of you meditating, some of you this is not a time for learning. This is not a time for learning a modality or learning like learning about astrology or learning about Reiki or learning about hypnosis, or it's not a time for that. You know all that. It's time to go back to making those things that you know, putting that practice back in your daily life. That's what this is about, because what comes out of this when you heal this is that you become the magician. You can become a guru, you can become the sage, you can become the people, and maybe that's not who you're going to become, but you can, right? But you're going to be the person that people go to for the spiritual and the body, because you're going to have a great understanding, right? Now, you can feel overwhelmed, you can feel lost because this house is activated, and it's for a reason. It's because in, and again, My belief is that even though we have a lifetime Pluto that we're dealing with, this transit is about healing this, like finishing up this part of you that you hadn't finished up yet. Let me see if I can say that in a different way. Like maybe, I'm going to make it for me. Maybe there is a sage that I want to be, because I know I've been sages and magicians and all that in other lives, but maybe there's a particular way I want to come to the understanding in this world, in this lifetime. And so I'm finishing that up by the 12th house and into the first house to incorporate a new me, a new identity in the first house. But I have to go through this part first. I have to go through the 12th house first, because maybe in other lifetimes I didn't have good boundaries, right? Uh, and that's what the 12th house is going to teach you in this transit. You have to have good boundaries. You have to take care of yourself as well. You're going to want to take care of others. You're going to want to help others because you see it, because you're learning it. You're learning what unconditional love is. Like you're understanding true unconditional love. Like even when somebody doesn't see the good in someone, you are. You're going to see it. And it's going to be very clear for you through this house as you're working through it. But you have to have good boundaries. Like I'll give you an example. Way back in the day, 10, 15 years ago, like um 10 years ago, somewhere through there, I would have a friend group, a girlfriend group, and I had several girlfriend groups. But I knew that this particular group or this set of girls acted in this way, right? I had love for them, but I knew how they were. And so I didn't have any expectation of, like, they were like, how do I say this? Like, one group was the party girls, right? Now, that's not a deep relationship, but that is a relationship I wanted. But I didn't expect them to have deep, dark, deep, intimate conversations with and grow, because they were the friend group. They were the party group. I had other friends for that. See, I knew them, and maybe nobody liked them. Maybe they got on people's nerves. Maybe they annoyed people. But I knew that they were who they were, and I had unconditional love. I loved them for who they were. I didn't expect anything else from them, right? I had boundaries with them. Um, that's like the best way I can describe it. It's like it's bringing me back to that. So you have to learn to have boundaries. You have to learn to see, you have to learn to preserve yourself and sacrifice as well, right? This is what you're learning: the self sacrifice and the self preservation and the balance in that. Sometimes I give, sometimes I take. Sometimes I give, sometimes I take, but I do it unconditionally. It's what I had been teaching you guys for the last 10 years. Unconditional love. You know who that person is. You see it. You feel them. You know them. Don't make them somebody else, right? But you have to learn, well, I can't lean on that person for that because that's not who that is. And that's my fault if I lean on them and expect them to be something that they're not, right? But I have to learn the boundary of that, and I have to learn, well, if they need $1,000, I know I'm not going to get that back because that's who that person is. If this person needed $1,000, they're going to probably give me 2,000 back, right? You got to know your boundary. Can I give the $1,000 away? Uh, you have to know your self-sacrifice. That's just one way to see it, right? But that's what you're going to be learning, is that you're gonna you are overwhelmingly feeling everybody and everything because you are connected, and that's what you're understanding about this house when Pluto transits is, maybe in a past life. Now, this is not going to feel like really, really hurtful because this is something you're finishing. If you were born with Pluto in the 12th house, that's a different thing. That's what I just did. But if you're transiting, if the Pluto's transiting your 12th house, it's like, okay, this may have happened in my past life. This may have happened in my childhood for a little bit. Um, but it wasn't like a pronounced focus for you, right? So you may kind of say, yeah, that may have happened. And it was that you didn't, you could feel everybody and you could sense everybody, and you either went to escapism or you shut it all down, or you um, didn't learn your boundaries. And so this time you're finishing up and you're going to learn boundaries, and you're going to learn how to incorporate your daily practice of your spirituality in your body. Does that make sense? So, for, let's just take anybody. Let's just say for you, you love, you know, you feel so much better when you meditate. Okay? So, but you don't do it. And then you're feeling lost and you're feeling everybody and it's getting overwhelming and you're isolating and you're like, I can't deal, right? So I'm going to go drink, or I'm going to go do the devil's lettuce. Or I'm gonna do all these herbs, or I'm gonna, fixate on something else. I'm gonna escape, right? You have to learn that, okay, well, my answer is I already know that meditation helps me. For some people, like for me, it's working out. Working out, I mean, I can meditate. I love to meditate, but working out is my passion, right? So, working out puts me in the zone, right? So for me, I have to incorporate that again. I have to like make sure that I am taking care of myself, because when I work out, I am centered. When I work out, I can see people for who they are. When I'm healthy, I can feel people. As a medium, I can feel people and get out of that state too. I'm like on the top of my game, and working out would be a spiritual practice for me that helps me in this world to navigate my body and my spirit. Does that make sense to you guys? I hope that makes sense. And that's what you're going to be doing in this 12th house. So, this is, let me just make sure that I've said everything. You could, if you get overwhelmed and don't do these practices, you could become the victim, right? So you could be like, poor me, the universe hates me, I can't stand humanity, they're all mean, there is no good in the world, what am I doing here? I thought I could help. You could be sort of that way. You could do that in the beginning, and especially right now in this time where it's first transiting. Um, you could isolate a lot because you just don't see the point of dealing with people or life, right? You could, uh, for some, some of you will have hospitalizations. Some of your mental health will like go astray because you haven't implemented these practices that you know are good for your body and your soul. They're good. That's the thing, is you are trying to incorporate body, soul, and spirit and the energy all together. And what comes out of that is the magician. What comes out of that is a guru. What comes out of that is the sage. But you have to implement these things. That's the way to transit. That's the way to make this transit. You have to allow yourself. If I am feeling bad, if everything is overwhelming, what makes me feel good? It's no longer, well, I'm just going to keep going forward and I'm just going to keep da 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 da. That's no longer that. You have to incorporate what you know will make you feel better, which is self preservation, and then also selfless acts as well, right? The balance in that. Okay? So you're going to learn to be strong and stand in what you know and who you are in partnership with everyone and everything around you. Does that make sense? But you're going to be, there's going to be times, and I know because it's already been transiting my 12th house. There's going to be times where you're emotionally exhausted. There's going to be times where you're spiritually exhausted. There's going to be times where you're mentally exhausted. There's going to be times when you're physically exhausted and you just don't know how you're going to make it. And I'm telling you, the way to make it is to implement the little things. Implement the things that you already know. If working out makes you feel better, work out. Get out of your head, quit giving excuses, go work out. If meditation makes you feel good, meditate. If going to a retreat, if hanging around with your girlfriends or guy friends or friends, I don't, whatever it is, if that helps you relieve some of this, then you have to implement that in your daily life. It has to be in your daily life. You have to have a routine spiritually in your daily life. That's what you're basically practicing in this part where Pluto is transiting you. Because you're going to come to the first house, some of you, like me, you're going to transition. Once you put these practices in, once you're totally aligned, once you understand that you don't have to understand completely to be able to move forward and walk in this world, once you get that, you're going to then go in, Pluto's then going to go in your first house where it's going to be about your identity and incorporating a new identity as you're releasing some of the things and ways that you don't feel is something you want to do in this life or be in this life. I hope that makes sense. It's not about like death and destruction and I'm going to lose myself. If you watch the first house, you'll get it. But it's about becoming this other thing, becoming this other way, right? Incorporating more of your other. Here's the thing. I think I could talk about this in the 12th for the 12th house people. And I alluded to it in the other one. When I say past lives, it's just because that's a concept that y'all understand. But these traumas and these things could be coming from a future life, could be coming from another existence, could be coming from another dimension, could be coming. It's almost like you're standing here and all of these all of these aspects of you are your identity, and you're just going to be incorporating some, you're going to like pick some of what you are and incorporate it, embody it into this body in this lifetime. Does that make sense? I hope that helps. So, the first thing that you need to do while you're implementing this practice, whether it's to meditate, whether it's to do energy healing on yourself, not others, whether it's to be with friends, whether it's to whatever that is, whether it's to work out, whatever it is that's the practice for you, while you're doing this, while you're incorporating this, your mission, we'll just say your mission, your purpose is to forgive yourself. That's the first thing. You have to look at it. You have to look at why you weren't there. Why did you do it that way? I thought I knew better. I fucked up bad and hurt some people. I should have stepped up at this part and didn't. I'm trying to think of things. I should have stood for that thing and I didn't. I should have shown up for myself and I didn't. I should have, I would have, I could have, and I didn't. And you have to forgive yourself for those things, for not being enough for you, for not seeing enough for you, for not doing enough for you. That's that's what you need to be transmuting, understanding in yourself is forgiveness. You have to forgive yourself first. Then you have to forgive the world. That's going to be the hardest thing for me. I'm being really raw right now. That's going to be the hardest thing for me. I'm still working through that. I've got a couple years to work through that. Is to forgive like the world, like society. Like I don't know if y'all remember when I said like I didn't come on for a year cuz I was mad. I was upset when COVID hit. I was mad. I was mad at the world. I was mad at humanity. I was mad at society. So, it's like that. You have to forgive them, the world, the others. You have to have unconditional love. I did not have unconditional love at that time, right? I'm slowly forgiving. That makes sense? You have to forgive yourself first. Then you have to forgive the world and them. And then you have to surrender and trust yourself and know and understand how all this plays out in your life and your connection to it. To understand that you right now may feel small, but you matter. Because without you, that's a different vibration on this earth and in this world and in this whole thing. This whole thing. Beyond this world, beyond that. You do set, help set the vibration, the frequency, right? So you have to forgive yourself, then you have to forgive everyone else, and then you have to like surrender. And I'm almost at the surrender. I have been surrendering a lot. And as a warrior, that is not easy to surrender. It's not easy to surrender. So don't get lost because you feel lost right now, or you're going to feel lost soon. Like what you thought you knew was not. That's the 12th house. But then you understand, I don't have to know it all. I don't. And like I said, as you know more, you realize you don't know anything, right? So, the other thing too that will help is that you need to, and you may want to start, like you'll feel this, you'll want to do this. This isn't something that you're not going to want to do. You're going to want to like take all the toxicity out. You're going to want to like all the bad juju, all the crap that you've had laid on you, all the lies that you can sense and feel, and it's going to come up. It's going to come up. You're going to want to detox, and then you're going to want to let it go. And that's what you're going to be doing in this 12th house. That's why you need the practice, the daily routine practice. That's why. Because these things are going to come up, and plus you're being overwhelmed with all the feelings of feeling everybody, of having compassion for everybody and everything. Yet you have to learn to like do that self-preservation. I hope that makes sense. So, once you begin to detox, once you begin to like get this stuff out, once you begin to like take better care of yourself, eat better, cook things, do your herbs, whatever that is for you, once you begin to do that, you'll feel better and you'll begin to have faith again in you, in God, in the universe, in all, I don't know how else to say this, in source, in the connection between, you'll have faith in this whole thing. You'll have faith. You'll begin to have faith again. That's what you're learning too, is your faith. Okay? And you'll become aware and putting into practice. That's what you're doing in your daily stuff, in your connection to everything on this earth and beyond. Okay? So, good luck to us. I hope that helps. I hope that helps. Um, yeah. Again, be sure to watch your Pluto where you were born with your Pluto, because that's a whole other thing too. All right? Bye. Be sure to like and subscribe.